dual wielding in video games has always been a sought after mechanic, from Call of Duty to Halo to Saints Row, and many others. Dual wielding has always been a very fun addition to video games that's not always present. In fact, most shooters, I would say, don't really have this as a feature, but the ones that do are typically very fun. Some systems like Halo or Borderlands allow you to dual wield multiple different weapons for fun and goofy combinations, while others are a bit more simple, just duplicating the weapon to your left hand, which is perfectly fine too. Quite frankly, twice the gun, twice the fun. Yet somehow, in Fallout, that's a feature we've just never seen, and that's a pretty sad one considering you are a hero of the Wasteland. You would expect the ability to do something a little bit more fun and charismatic with your character and their weapon choices. I do remember a time in Fallout 4's modding history where we were seeking after dual wielding for so long, but knew it was probably just a pipe dream. And then one day, Her came along with some custom animations that made it possible. Nowadays, while it is very rare, dual wielding mods are actually something that you can find a pretty good amount of on the Nexus. Off the top of my head, I can think of a handful of different animators who have found a workaround to get this working. But there is one mod that laid the foundation for this, known as the Juger Pistols by Her. To my knowledge, this is the original standalone weapon that featured dual wielding as its main feature. As a matter of fact, this weapon is intended to be used with a dual wield configuration, though there is going to be a version with just one if you're into that kind of thing. But having that as an option is fantastic, and for a very first run of this sort of technology in Fallout 4, it's pretty amazing. Now, to be honest, most, if not all, of the dual wield mods in Fallout are going to use some animation trickery to mimic dual wielding, even though it's technically not the same. There isn't actually a second object there, and you're not firing it separately. Typically, it's going to be a trickery with the animation that makes it so when you pull the trigger, it will fire twice. Pretty simple, but still a pretty complicated thing to do since it's going to require some pretty intense animation work, which most people don't know how to do. So having something like this is still a very much appreciated thing from some really talented authors. Off the top of my head, Her and Cadaver are two of the really big ones that pop into my head when it comes to these dual wield animation sets. Now, while the idea of using two weapons at once is definitely the star of the show when it comes to this mod, there's actually some other really fun stuff going on in it as well, including a fun, unique location that allows you to find this set of weapons, as well as some cool customization options and some other fun, neat additions, including one of my favorite things is the way you aim these. When it comes to aiming with dual wield, it's always a really weird system, and it's something you have to figure out how you want to use. In some games like Halo, there's no aiming whatsoever, so it's not a big deal. Other games, you kind of just scrunch the guns together and try to use them at the same time, something like Payday. But this mod actually aims to allow you to use iron sights while dual wielding, which is pretty dang cool. Now, enough about the dual wielding feature itself, let's also talk about the weapon involved, because this is also a very unique custom pistol, completely made from scratch. I can't see any one specific thing that it's inspired by. It looks like a fun amalgamation of many different ideas and some originality from Her as well. Her has always been known for a very stylized approach, and I feel like this gun is a nice middle ground between his very stylized nature, but also the vanilla style of Fallout 4, something right in between that fits very well, and I have to say I like it quite a lot. This is a bit of an earlier mod for Her, so it's not going to look quite the same as some of the other ones or have the same options, but it is still very good, very high quality, and it is going to be marked down as one of the greats on the Fallout 4 modding scene for sure. Now, there is a good bit to talk about in terms of the integration of this weapon, its different attachments, how it works in games, the animations, many different things. So let's go ahead and jump in game so we can talk about many of those features. We'll start off with its stats and its animations, and then we'll get into how you actually get this thing, because it's a little bit more complicated than your typical weapon mod. Now, of course, for starters, we do need to talk about the stats for this weapon in its standard configuration. There are actually technically two different configurations of this weapon, one where you have two pistols and one where you just have one, and that does actually affect the stats just a little bit there. It is going to change some small things. Now, for starters, I think it's a base damage of around 23-ish. This is going to be doubled with the pistol perks. It uses 45 caliber rounds, has a fire rate of 55, a range of 179, an accuracy of 60, a weight of 3.1 pounds, and a value of 47 caps, which is honestly surprisingly low considering this is a unique weapon. Technically speaking, you're only supposed to get one set of these because they are in a unique location and they are one of a kind. I can't think of any other way that you could pick these up. Well, unless that is, you pick it up off of a legendary roll. If you kill a legendary enemy, there's actually a small chance that these will drop, But that is literally the only other way to get them. They're not added to any other leveled list. You cannot craft them at the chemistry station except for their different configurations. But you're going to need these as a base to be able to craft that in the first place. That's actually how you get the single version of this weapon. You take the dual-wield Juger pistols, you take them over to a chemistry station, and you can craft them into single versions. So that's a pretty interesting one to go back and forth between. Instead of having it as an option at the weapons workbench, it is actually a technically different weapon. Now then, let's talk animations, because there's actually a good bit to go over. Starting off with the dual-wield variant, which has a really flashy equip, and as you can see, we have 2 pistols. I know in 2024 that's not the craziest, most surprising thing you've ever seen, but this really is an important mod that laid the foundation for some really cool stuff that we would be able to do in the future. Now, one of my favorite features with these weapons is not only the fact that they fire twice at the same time with one trigger pull. As you can see, it fires twice. It may seem like I'm clicking twice, but that's not how this works. Actually, that couldn't work like that. It has to be one single animation, but it does pull 2 bullets from the magazine. Now, that may seem obvious, but that's actually a really hard thing to pull off in Fallout 4 modding. Being able to fire multiple bullets with one trigger pull is not the simplest thing in the world. It's technically burst fire, and burst fire is kind of hard to do in this engine. Now, there is some weird stuff with the limitations of the engine and these animations. For example, if you do fire this thing at the reasonable pace, it will fire correctly. But if you were to spam it a little bit, as you can see, it only fires the one side. But it does take the correct amount of bullets. It doesn't fire extra without you actually getting that payoff. So that part is very, very nice. Now, you may have noticed something there that is pretty interesting, and that is that both of these pistols, you would think would be treated as separate weapons, but because of how they work in this mod, they are actually the same gun and therefore share the same ammo. As you can see, if I just fire the right pistol, I can fire all 20 bullets, while this thing should only have 10 per pistol. And I reload the left side even though it never shot a single bullet. That is what it is. It's just kind of a limitation of the way the mod works and the way the engine works. So it's going to be a while before we see 2 separate functional weapons in Fallout 4. In fact, it's possible we might never see that just because of how the game works. One other thing I forgot to mention about the dual-wield animation set is you can aim with this thing, which is one of my favorite features. And the way it's done is very simple. You pull off the left weapon to the side, and you just aim with the right pistol. As we've already seen, you can just shoot with this one freely, and it technically gives you extra ammo, so that's pretty nice. It works just fine. It has relatively competent sights. It's a pretty small front post there, but you'll be able to aim pretty accurately. But if you want to use this thing to its fullest, you're definitely going to want to hip fire, so you can use the other pistol. It's definitely more for style points than anything, but why would you be downloading a dual-wield mod if not for that exact reason? But there is also another version of this weapon, which is going to be the single version. Like I said, you can split this thing up at the chemistry station, and then it just becomes a pretty standard pistol. It's got decent animations. And I suppose that's all you could really ask for. It's a nice looking pistol, but for sure, I don't know why you'd be picking that over dual-wield. Quite frankly, the animations look so nice, and it's very fun. They're slow, but they're flashy, and they're cool, and it's kind of the whole point of this mod. Now then, I'm sure you're wondering, how do you actually get your hands on this weapon if you download this mod? If you want to do it the correct way, the way that is appropriate and not cheaty, and you don't want to spawn this thing in, then you're going to have to head over to the Relay Tower 0DB521, right next to the Vertibird wreckage, just inside the glowing sea here, south of Vault 95, a pretty easy location to get to, but be careful, the glowing sea is still, of course, a dangerous place. Now, once you get to this location, you'll see a pretty wrecked place with a nice big tower, and when you get into this general area, you should see a new radio station pop up as an SOS. If we tune to that, we're going to get not a whole lot going on. I may need to tweak my radio settings. There we go. Now you can hear a very faint, muddy signal. You can't really make out quite what it's saying. That's part of the puzzle. You need to walk around and try to get this thing to clean up a little bit. So, go ahead and start doing that. Luckily, I do know the right direction to head, as I spent some good time trying to figure this out earlier. We start heading sort of up towards Vault 95. You can get the signal to be a bit clearer. You can see that the note says that he's been attacked by gunners, which means you should honestly head even closer to Vault 95.
This message should repeat.
The further we get, the cleaner the audio is and the louder it gets as well,
Hello?
leading you to the right
I'm in need of
point.
assistance.
We
God,
keep
I
heading
hope
up this
someone
way.
hears
We
this.
should be coming up on it here pretty
I was
dang
attacked
soon.
by some gunners, and I'm currently holed up in some old bunker with my dog. Please help. This transmission is very
Matter of
weak,
fact,
as I
we
don't
can
want
see
to
the
attract
bunker
their
right
attention.
there. I don't know if
If
that's going to
anyone
pick up
hears
with
this,
YouTube's
send help.
compression, but there is a
This
nice little
message
hatch
should
there, and
repeat.
also it is guarded by a deathclaw. We can probably sneak in there without it knowing.
Hello? I'm in need of assistance. God, I hope someone hears this.
Maybe we'll
I
just have
was
to be quick.
attacked by some gunners, and I'm currently holed up in some old bunker with my dog. Please help.
And there we have it. Inside the bunker, safe from the deathclaw. Hopefully we don't meet the same demise that the person who left that holotape did. So, we head inside. We look around a little bit. We'll eventually find a sad sight. You heard the radio transmission. You heard a man saying that he's trapped in a bunker with his dog. And clearly, those things didn't end very well. But, you can see on the table here, we have a nice set of pistols. Now the animation actually plays on its own. I didn't click anything. As soon as you walk up to this desk, that will initiate, and you'll get a nice little look at the pistols with a cool animation, something that Nihar is known for. Also a couple of notes here, detective case file, and Richard's note, which is going to say, I've set up a radio transmission. I only hope that somebody can answer it soon. Well, hopefully the right someone. And you know how that ends. So, now we have the nice pistols. That's how you get them. And once you have them, you can split them up into the single version or double. That part is up to you. Now, lastly, of course, we do need to talk about the attachment section over at the weapons workbench. Luckily, there's not too much going on, so it won't take up too much time. We have the receiver section where we have standard all the way up through advanced with a hair trigger on a bottom. Oh, hair trigger advanced. Fun. You get a faster fire rate and really high damage. That's actually pretty cool for this thing since it does fire pretty slow without any modifications. We have the option for some pretty interesting combinations here. Maybe it would have been better to show off the single version of this weapon first, but this is going to give you different combinations for the dual wield setup since they don't want to use too many different nodes. So, specifically on the dual wield version of the pistol, we have the standard configuration, compensated, muzzle brake, suppressor, extended mag with compensator, extended mag with muzzle brake, and extended mag with suppressor. I have a pretty little experience with doing this myself, but I have met a couple of people who have made dual wield mods like this, and making attachments for them is pretty funky, so that is exactly why they're set up like this, with one attachment system where the suppressor and magazine are one attachment. As far as I know, that might be required, but maybe nowadays it's not so much. I'm not entirely sure. Then we do have some paint options where we have the standard paint, aluminum anodized paint, aluminum brushed paint, blood splattered, bronze, clean, copper, dirt, gold, and steel. Pretty cool sets with some different colors that also change out the grips, which is pretty nice. But there is also the standard version of the pistol. This is going to have the same set of receivers. It's going to have the muzzle separate where you have the compensator, muzzle brake, and suppressor, which look really cool. I especially like that muzzle brake design. And then we have the magazine separate here with standard, quick eject, extended, and extended quick eject. And then for paints, we have all the same paints that we just went through a minute ago. So yeah, guys, that is the Juger pistol mod by Nihar. A classic, but still a fantastic one. I love shedding light on some of these older mods that I never got a chance to cover, especially when they're such top-notch quality like this one. If you want to check it out, it will be linked down in the description below. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoy the mod. If you did enjoy the video, consider dropping it a like. It really helps with the channel, and it's free. If, however, you'd like to support my work directly, whether it's the videos I make here on YouTube or the mods I make on the Nexus, you can do so using the link down in the description to check me out on Patreon. It is, of course, completely optional, only there for people who wish to do so, but it is there as an option if you'd like to. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed once again, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace!